Welcome to the Microsoft Cloud Option webinar series. My name is Vivek Bhatnagar. I am a CTO and founder for UnifyCloud. Okay, then let's talk about a little bit in detail on what how do you expand your landing zone. So these are the principle which typically we use to expand the landing zone, and the first one is definitely your identity structure, so multi-forest or single forest. And if you have like in a system, you have a partners, you have a customer, and you have inside employees, how do you manage your identity, and how do you manage with that access management, what should be available like through internet, what should be only internal applications. So these are the complex architecture principle that you need to get in place in your landing zone while expanding it. And talk about like management groups and organization. Finally, like what kind of topology of networking you are following. Do you need any express route? Another thing, how do you build network? How you will give access to so each one of your assets, and how the network's going to help you in security, like so, and also like how this networking can help you in implementing backups or or maybe disaster recovery, other aspect. And finally, the management and control and business continuity planning. So these go hand in hand, where you plan for disaster recovery, or things something will go wrong, and that's for sure. The things do go wrong, and at that point of time, you should not think about what to do. It should be properly documented that what to do. So it is mostly scenario based planning, that what will happen if you lose your network, what will happen if you lose your domain services, what will happen if you lose your databases, what will happen if you lose your application. So there are a lot of scenarios people document, and they build architecture according to it to solve these problems. And then last but not the least, talk about the compliances. And I typically talk about compliances very early, because it actually govern a lot more time your cloud implementation. And Azure, although it looks same everywhere, but Azure compliances are different at different places. For example, Azure US East might have different compliance from Azure West inside a country, and definitely it would be different if you go to Australia, New Zealand, or China, or Germany. These compliances will vary for each services. So it's a complex issue to look at compliances for each services, but it is an important part of your architecture when you build it. So use these architecture principle while expanding your landing zone, and see that how you can help to run these like typical these clouds. And if you have these architecture principles, also think about automation, platform automation, and DevOps, so that this will make your life easier. Otherwise, it's very difficult to manage without at least some type of automation, some type of DevOps in place. You can help your developers to do things. If you look at the complete scenario, like how do we expand things while building these zones. So let me overlap the basic the framework, cloud option framework, and the zoning part of it. So you can see that the first landing zone which you build is more focused on few of the basic things, like you focus on compute, networking, storage. So uh, these are the basic considerations. So you focus on fundamentally hosting, another aspect. You focus on some of the operational aspect of like performance, reliability, or operational aspects, or you focus a little bit on governance and security aspects. So that's this typical like your first landing zone. It is mostly like lightweight, and that's why we have used the word opinionated, like built for certain perspective, limited initial scope, iterative, and provide a lot of starting point for migration. But as you expand your landing zone, then it basically you expand it to the using the same architectural principles. And this expanded landing zone has more detail about security governance. How do you put automation in place? How do you put layer control framework? This is again a longer implementation time. This has an unlimited lot more scope that you can add more and more complex. It also address like interdependency between platform operations and other thing. and finally give you the final state of architecture. So that this is the final state of architecture combination of all these things. Uh, and this expanding of lending zone also go like as you add new and innovative technologies. So in case, for example, you add services like AI or some sort of a specialized databases, you can actually add more automations and other aspect of it. So it is just you keep expanding as you actually move to migrate or innovate another aspect of things. So this is one of the way we can understand how this landing zone, the process work from first landing zone to more complex landing zone, and how do you what are the architecture principle you have to think about when you build these kinds of zone. Okay, again, like as I told you that we would be just going a little bit at least tell you that what are the considerations for building these landing zones and how do you build it. And the consideration are basically in three categories, like hosting decisions. Like these are decisions you make around basic hosting thing like compute, storage, networking, database, and other thing. And here, like there are a lot of options available. Like for example, like if you look at Azure for compute options, there are like different kind of options. You can select a virtual machine, or Azure batch files, or app services, functions, containers. So these are Azure compute options, and there are some broader principle that what services you should select. Some services are easy to provision and faster. Some actually give you a lot of innovations and other advantage. So there are basic guidelines available, like what you select, but these guidelines are again like subjective, and you need to take your own decisions as an architect, that how do you look at compute decision, or how do you look at different networking decision of like VPN gateway to express route based on what business case you are working on. So I believe that these are few decision points. Most of the time these are the technical one. A lot of business decision point you can actually bring yourself and take a right decision. How do you go for different networks, or for different databases, and different like storage mechanism. And also there's a lot of information available in Microsoft documentation by which you can decide. My purpose here to basically educate you that how you can use these things, uh, or keep in mind like while building these things. And then we have a lot of like other fundamental things which we have discussed, like where like which like the building blocks. So how do you do like management groups, resource groups, subscription, and other aspect. And finally talked about governance, that how do you make governance on these types of things. So these are the main aspect which we should think about while building the landing zone. And definitely like when you go ahead and start expanding your landing zone, then it become like a much more complex architectural concept.